Sometimes reading the book isn't enough. We want to be immersed in an idea or feeling. That's why at Book Interrupted, we've made a playlist for each book cycle. Visit www.bookinterrupted.com to find playlists for each book cycle and member. Or check out our YouTube channel. What's on your playlist?
Parental guidance is recommended because this episode has mature topics and strong language. Here are some moments you can look forward to during this episode of Book Interrupted.
And I am the best version of myself when I believe that.
You know, obviously this is not my thing, so everybody knows that
you
already.
You are the skeptic. And further, and then near the end, you're like, is he ever coming back up?
That thing wasn't bad at all. Took me right over here.
And then all of a sudden, like, time stops and you have like a million thoughts that you can process for some reason in that
so
slow
weird.
motion.
Everything happens for a reason. It's like my least favorite thing that people say in the whole world.
Mind, body, and soul. The information is the goal. Try to learn something new without being distracted. Mind, body, and soul. The information is the goal. Try to learn something new without being disrupted. Mind, body, and soul. Inspiration is the goal. And we're gonna talk it out on Book Interrupted.
Welcome to Book Interrupted, a book club for busy people to connect and one that celebrates life's interruptions. If you'd like to join along, this book cycle is from September 12th to October 17th. It's Kim's book pick, and we're reading From the Ashes by Jessie Thistle. From the Ashes is a memoir that exposes what it means to live surrounded by prejudice and racism, and how to find happiness despite the odds. Let's listen in to this episode's group discussion.
Can I share with you guys? I did a bit of research I was very curious about his right foot and the problems it gave with him.
Oh my gosh.
So I
That's
decided
horrible.
to look into, because I'm obsessed with, like, as a therapist in training and a professional coach, I love getting into the semantics of things, like what is our body telling us, because it holds so much wisdom. So this is what his right foot, having been broken, damage to the nerves, broken bones, this is what I found. Let me know your guys' thoughts. Right side of the body represents the masculine side, details, logic, expression, so that he was having trouble with the masculine side of himself. One might say that could represent the white majority, but I will leave it at that. Then problems with his feet. So the foot represents grounding, balance, rootedness. So he was kind of having issues with those things. Nervous system, that is representative of your sensitivity, your responsiveness, your ability to trust. The bottom portion of the body represents action and doing. And then finally, bones, and he had broken bones. Bones represent the spiritual energy that supports life and enables it to manifest. Problems here indicate conflicts at our deepest core levels.
And where is this coming from? Just what's your
will-
source?
No, absolutely. It's drawn from Tai Chi, Qigong, as well as I will get you the other book that I read. I forget the title and artist, but I will send it through to you on somatics. Yeah.
I can put
love
it
that.
in the show
The
notes as well. Yeah, for the show notes.
Yeah.
You know, obviously this is not my thing, so everybody knows that already, but
You are the skeptic. You are the skeptic.
I'm the skeptic of these things. But
Let's hear it.
I mean, he fell out a window and broke his leg. Are you saying that
Spoiler alert.
yeah.
it's not like his foot, but it wasn't like his foot started to hurt and that because he had issues of this? So are you
believe
saying
there are no
symbolism.
coincidences in life.
I think the symbolism of it.
Yeah.
And symbolically, it just happens to be quite fascinating.
Okay.
That it's like on topic. Like it lines up.
You think there's no coincidences? You think everything has meaning?
Like if you fall out
I
a
don't
window?
necessarily know that everything has meaning, but I don't think anything has coincidences. I think
Do you think everything happens for a reason?
I think no, I just think that life happens and we tend to, many of us, over personalize things or like, oh, that's happening and it's happening to me and it's so bad. No, it's actually just happening in that sense. Like there are no coincidences. Like things just happen and many of them happen to be opportunities to learn lessons.
Okay, so for example, the way that what Kara's doing, like in this exact moment, I really like it because if life was a giant mystery or lesson or puzzle to be solved or whatever, like if there was more to life than just walking around doing whatever you do, I really like exploring things in those ways because I get connected to my source, right? So this is my spirituality through interpreting things in those ways. That's how I feel guided. That's where I find my
Yes.
faith, right? So when Kara tells me all that stuff about his foot, I'm like, of course. Like it's exactly,
It's
it
in
makes
his
perfect
bones.
sense to me, right? Like, oh yes, of course the bones mean, like if she told us all that stuff and was just like, here's some things I wanted to tell you or whatever. And we'd be like, oh, obviously you're just talking about the story of Jesse Thistle in another way. And then she's like, actually, I was reading what the right side foot means when it's broken. And then you're like, holy shit, right? Because he broke his right foot. Like it can't be a coincidence, right? So it's the same thing when like something bad happens to me. I take that faith that I get from those things and I'm like, okay, this is taking me where I need to go or redirecting my course or doing whatever. Like maybe I had a plan and my plan's not going to work out for whatever reason, but this thing isn't bad. This thing is actually good. And I just need to find out why. And so I also like to take time when I am in a good spot to look backwards at that thing that I thought was bad and be like, yeah, that thing wasn't bad at all. It took me right over here. So that's the value I get from that kind of talk, that silly talk.
I like that because I believe in choice and fate. Like I think things are fated, but you have a choice between choosing your fate now or waiting out not choosing your fate kind of thing. So I have that kind of faith too. I feel like there is little signposts being like, okay, are you ready? No, you're not ready? Okay.
We'll just do another spiral. No worries.
But
We're waiting.
And it makes me feel connected to something.
Yeah, so I like that. Yeah, anyway. Yeah, I like that too.
Jesse Thistle's story is got so much to it though. I wonder if you could look at any body part and be like, yep, he had some problems with that.
Really? That's true.
Right? Because that's kind of his story, is just like this downward spiral, and when you think he's hit bottom, he goes further and further, and then near the end you're like, is he ever coming back up? And he does. So I think that's Lindsay and I are feeling like
You're sciencey, right?
well, yeah, but yeah, but I'm not like Kara. Kara, I don't want you to like not share these things because I react that way, because I'm always going to react that way with skepticism for this kind of stuff. So don't feel like I'm attacking you.
And we love you,
Thank you.
because that's why we're friends with you.
Well, I'm not going to stop doing it because it means, like Kim, it means the world to me. I wouldn't be in a great place right now if I hadn't paid attention to what the crows were telling me, and if I hadn't paid attention to the way that the squirrels were playing in front of me, if I hadn't noticed all those robins telling me years ago when I was in a bad place that there's a brand new chapter starting, whether it is true or not. I have noticed that I am a better person and I am the best version of myself when I believe that. So I love the skepticism because that's balance to me. That's awesome being able to see, because that's true. I just am choosing to like another version of myself that acknowledges there's a bit of magic in the world.
It's kind of the same as people figure out what makes them feel more comfortable or secure or, justify their decisions and stuff. Might be different.
Self-soothing, right? Like whatever their thing is that makes them feel happy.
Yeah, like it makes
Do
me feel
that.
connected.
Yeah.
And like a good example of how, like what Mary's saying, I'm thinking the same thing. Like it is the same thing. Meredith will understand it scientifically, for example, like research-based, like whatever. And that's for many people that people are like, yeah, duh, like that's facts, like literally facts. But so for example, I believe that when you learn a new lesson, you're like, okay, I learned this lesson, like whatever. And then I believe that the universe will then give you a test to be like, did you actually learn it? Here you go. Let's see if you do that thing differently now. That happens for me 100% of the time. And it happens when I tell people about it too. I can identify it for them, whether they get it or not. Like that's for them. But I'm like, there it is. There's their test. I wonder what they're going to do. Like, did they actually learn what they said they learned? But also, if we were going to talk like behavioral science wise, I'm the common denominator. I behave in such a way, and it's literally about breaking a habit or changing a habit. I need to make a different choice. Whether the universe is testing me or not, we can debate. There's no facts for that. But the fact would be that because I do things in a certain way, I'm going to get the same results until I do something different. Like it's the same, right? It's true.
You get to
Both
the
is
end.
true.
Yes.
You get to the finish
Yeah.
line the same way. It's just how you get there.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think it only works in my mind for certain kinds of problems.
Okay, so give me one that it works for and give me one that it doesn't work for.
It works for our socioeconomic problem. It doesn't work for big problems. This doesn't work for a kid born in Syria. Everything happens for a reason. It's like my least favorite thing that people say in the whole world.
You might like the book Bright Sided. It's all kind of all about that, about positivity and
There's nothing wrong with self-soothing. I self-soothe in the opposite way that Kara does. It makes me feel out of control to give it up to, in your case, Robin's, in that particular like kind of spring renewal idea. Because control is self-soothing to me. So giving it up to faith or magic is unsoothing to me. So I'm doing the same thing in the opposite. I like all those kinds of things because I think they're good fun, but they don't soothe me. And I don't think that those kinds of, there's nothing wrong with anyone's spirituality or faith. I don't care what it is, but it's hard to apply those kinds of ideas, I think, to big problems personally.
Yeah. And
So-
I don't know that I have the right words to explain. It's not
I
that
know,
I'm
that's
trying to
a real
say that,
hard-
but I
I
get
know.
what you're talking about.
Like it only
I'm-
works for smaller scale problems.
The distinction I'd like to make is that for me, it's about personal growth. It's not about solving war-torn countries and being like, oh, the universe, whatever. For me, it's about
Well,
the way
yeah.
that I invest in myself and understand myself and then make myself a better person.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's a faith built around personal growth. Yeah, those are the perfect words for it.
I kind of like to look at it this way because, when people say everything happens for a reason, what I think is it's kind of like that, but it's like everything that's happened to me has made me who I am today.
Yeah, I don't like everything happens for a reason either, personally, that phrase, because I don't believe that either.
Right, so bad things happen, and I don't know if there's any good reason for it, but that bad thing that happened partially formed who I am today, for better or for worse. And sometimes it's for worse, but that's who I am. So, I mean, that's kind of the flip side. I don't really like the everything happens for a reason, but I like the everything that has happened has brought me or us to where we are today.
I think that's an exercise in self-love.
Yeah, we are the sum of our experiences.
self-acceptance.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe that's kind of what this book is saying too, right? He's like, here's all the things that have happened, and he's got, this is what I learned from these. He's not saying they're good or bad. I mean, obviously we know when they're bad. It's very obvious, and it's kind of contributed. It was part of his journey, and his journey is part of who he is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Any last thoughts? Anything else that everyone wants to talk about? Like,
I think everybody recommends the book.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We should go
Oh,
around.
for sure.
Recommend.
I don't think we have to. Everybody's like, it's the best we've ever read. Or it's like the best in the
I'm
season.
gonna read
Everyone's
it
like,
again,
we're reading
yeah.
it again and again. No,
Yeah.
very well written.
I love the book. I was just thinking about the leg part too, like how he wrote all the things he thought. Because I've had accidents where I've gone in slow motion, and then all of a sudden, like time stops, and you have a million thoughts that you can process for some reason
It's
in that
so
slow
weird.
motion. I like how he wrote that particular story. He's like, then I try to remember a judo. The best thing to do with the judo is to do a judo
Careful.
roll, and maybe I won't
Yeah.
die. And I like how everything, all his stories, it just made you in the moment. It made you
Transported you.
Yes, connecting with like, oh, what would I say if I was in that situation, free falling to my death potentially?
Do you know what else I really liked about that part? And I folded a page and I'm like, I don't know why I folded this page. Even though on the outside, or maybe even consciously at that point, there wasn't a lot of self-preservation. when it came right down, and also when he attempted suicide, there was this still little glow inside of him that was like, I don't actually want to not exist. I like, that's been my reaction, I guess, to my experience thus far. Like, it appears that one might interpret all of my choices to trend towards I don't actually want to exist. But when it came right down to it, he did want
He had
to
an
live.
instinct.
Yeah.
They had inner conflict. Do I like me or do I not like me?
Yeah.
I also like that made me think of the part when that horrible part when he's running through the forest when those guys are supposed to be giving him a lift.
Oh, and the trees helped
Who
him?
are those
Yes.
fuckers? I want last names. Like, honestly.
But yeah, how he was running through the forest and he felt like as if his ancestors were there helping him.
Yeah. I loved that.
That part.
Yeah. How did he have the dream though of like that
Horses?
was freaky deaky.
It was great. I love
Yeah.
that part of the book.
So
Loved
to-
and hated that part of the book. So I was like,
Oh
come
my God.
on!
A break, just like
Can you get
Yeah.
a break? Like, geez.
What part are we talking about? The dream with the horses?
No, the running through the forest part. Sorry.
Oh, what about when he threw the Bible and it opened up to Psalm whatever? I wonder if he ever read that. Did anyone look up what that Psalm is? So I did, and it's something about, I'm surprised you didn't, Kara. This is
I
the,
know.
the meaning part, right? Like the book opened to a
I'm
page,
a
right?
bit too resistant to organized religion.
You're
Otherwise,
like, I don't
think
wanna know their
probably
message.
would've. Yeah.
And it was something about like you'll get forgiveness for your sins or forgiving sins. I need to Google it right now because I don't want to do it wrong. But the thing
you
that
didn't
I
memorize it.
No, I did not memorize it. I have not memorized all my Psalms yet. So I thought that it was interesting that I think he might have got that message. Again, this is my thing, right? That book opened to that page for a reason. Oh, by the way, I don't think everything happens for a reason. I wouldn't say that to people. But when that book opens to that page, I feel like that's the universe. That's an opportunity for me to investigate some information that has come. And I look at that
hope
information.
That it doesn't come across. I hope I'm wrong. I hope that all this stuff, I hope everything is filled with magic and faith. I'm just naturally, I guess, skeptical or something. I don't know. Resistant. It's probably more to do with my need for control than anything. It's my favorite thing about Kara is how she finds meaning in everything. She's a magical person. That's my favorite thing about it. So I hope you guys don't take as I'm not judging you. I'm curious.
My favorite thing.
We
about
want
Kara,
you to say
too.
something.
I love
Yeah.
Yeah.
that.
And I'm just getting to know this part about you, Kim. And I hope you don't feel judged at all. I think I hope I'm wrong. I hope that in the end that all secrets are revealed and that we live in a magical place.
I only feel interrupted. I'm just trying to finish my point.
And you're in the right place, Kim. You've come to the right club.
Interrupted.
I don't feel judged. When everyone's like, I don't think that. I don't think that. I felt like compelled to be like, I also don't think that. I just asked Kara
You
if that's
felt
what she
misunderstood.
thought. Yeah, so I did for a second. But what I
Misunderstood.
was trying to just say is that when that psalm came up, I feel like if you explore that, like the broken right foot, you can find relevance in the message. And then I also think that interestingly, that message was delivered in a way that he doesn't want it. Like he doesn't want traditional religion, right? He didn't even look at it. But his dream, I think, symbolically, may have held the same message.
Oh.
And so for me, and when the way that I think about things and stuff, again, he's receiving guidance in whatever way. And it's just for him to acknowledge or observe or take when he's ready, I guess. So I thought that was really interesting in the story too.
Did you find
that's
it?
really cool.
Are you the
No,
reader?
I got off I kept on opening and it kept on just going to, no.
What's
What
the
is it?
song?
I think it was Psalm 42. I have the page. So let me just, it's not 42, it's 32.
Okay.
Psalm 32.
That changes everything.
Yeah.
Well,
Never mind
actually-
what I said.
Let me see.
Actually, it does.
Psalm 32. Anything else? Like the whole thing? It looks long.
Just read the very beginning. I think that was where the,
Okay. Blessed is the one whose transgressions are forgiven, whose sins are covered. And this is
Right.
blessed is,
Aw,
yeah.
Right. That's
like,
good.
and he had to like forgive his own, because the other thing too, this is going to go way off on a thing, but if you wanted to embrace Christianity, blessed is the one whose transgressions are forgiven. I think it's about him forgiving himself.
Yeah. No.
Right?
Yes,
Like it's not about
clearly.
getting forgiveness from someone else. It's about him forgiving himself for who he is, what he could control, what he couldn't control, like the whole thing. And so that message, I think is really relevant. And then it would take longer to look up all of the meanings that could be attached to his dream with the horses and his ancestors and maybe fire. I can't remember all of the details of that, but I would wager that there is similar, like, I think that's about embracing who he is. Like, forgive yourself for being who you are.
This is part
That's
of
what
your
I think
story.
about that.
I love all of it, Kim. All of it.
And I'll let you guys all do that, and you can just report back and let me know.
Wonderful. Okay, well, it's time. So, does anyone have any last takes from the ashes? Other than we're all going to read it again and we all give it a big thumbs up.
Thank you, Jessie Thistle, for writing this and sharing your story with us.
Yeah.
Thank you. Talk about art moving you, right? That book, that it just exemplifies how you can be changed by someone else's story.
This interruption is brought to you by Unpublished. Do you want to know more about the members in Book Interrupted? Go behind the scenes? Visit our website at www.bookinterrupted.com.
Book interrupted.
Okay, so here's my interruption. Visiting friends and family. Yay! COVID has been very hard being away from the people I love. My interruption is that I've gone around and visited a whole bunch of my friends and family. Saw my mom, which was amazing. Spent time with Meredith and my brother. Saw all the girls in Book Interrupted. And just to see them in person, it really makes you realize how important the people in your life is. So yeah, my interruption is spending wonderful quality time with the people I love.
Book interrupted.
It's book report time. We're going to find out from each member their final thoughts. And do they recommend the book? Let's listen.
Hello. I just finished reading From the Ashes by Jessie Thistle. And so, of course, it is time to do a book report. I just don't know what to say. This is absolutely my favorite book so far of all the book picks that we have had this season of Book Interrupted. And I'm having a hard time putting into words what it is about this book that is so incredible. Well, first of all, I haven't, although I am a predominantly nonfiction reader, I actually haven't read that many autobiographies, biographies, or memoirs, like maybe at most half a dozen in my life. So I really appreciated being able to hear someone's story from their own voice. That was beautiful. And I'm really attracted to storytelling. That is what has continuously drawn me back to the theater and performing arts. It is also what really motivates me in my work as a behavioral coach and a soon-to-be a therapist in training. There is something about the way that someone shares their own truth that really allows the person witnessing or hearing or experiencing that to find their own truths. This book doesn't even read like a memoir. It reads like it's so, how should I describe it? It really activated so many visuals for me while I read the book. I could instantly see it play out as a movie or a play on stage. It's so perfect. There is so much subtext. A lot of like reading between the lines, and the word selection is exquisite. It is not accidental, and it's not even overly wordy the way that Clarissa Pinkola Estes wrote her book. I would say that that was a very wordy book. I love that book. Fantastic read, but it was very wordy. This one is like just enough. Every word was purposeful, with intention, so descriptive, and symbolically brilliant. I super enjoyed how, while you read the story, some of the chapters are broken up with poems that have been written by the author. And that was, I mean, delicious, delightful, just spiritually nourishing. It was so fantastic to have that juxtaposition of kind of like recounting experiences that had happened in the past and then intermingling that or peppering those story retellings with poetry. It really made the book come together and added to it. It didn't take away from or feel like too much or anything like that. Gosh, his writing really reminds me a lot of Alice Munro's work, where I guess two things on that. Alice Munro, of course, is very well known and extremely talented with short stories, and I found that each of these chapters could almost be read on their own. That each chapter was like a very concise story in and of itself. Of course, though, it's great that there's like an entire book because each little chapter or story does build upon the other. But I feel like you could read chapters in isolation and still feel a sense of depth and new understanding. So I found that that was very in common with Alice Munro. Also, what I found this author, Jessie, had in common with Alice Munro is the way that they both tell stories. And again, I think that this comes back to word selection and the way one describes something. Alice Munro is great at talking about the thing without talking about the thing. And I found that Jessie was able to do that in a similar way, to be able to talk about the thing without talking about the thing. Oh my gosh, like that one chapter when Jessie gets into, oh my God, just being in the one foster home and what was occurring. And I remember talking to my sister, and we were just both like, the way that it impacted, and you're just like, oh my God, is he saying what I think? Oh my God, oh no, no. And it's like, and I went back and I read the chapter again, and I was like, oh fuck, no. So it really blew my mind how you could get a sense of what this young man's experience was without him necessarily or coming out and saying that I was sexually molested. He was able to convey so many subtleties and disturbances in really skillful ways. Is it a hard read? Not challenging in terms of like, is that above my intellectual capacity? But for your heart and your spirit, it is hard. And yet, simultaneously, you cannot put the book down. I absolutely recommend this book. I will, before the year is up, I want to read it again. It is that good. He is such an artist. I applaud him on his bravery and courage for sharing this story and for continuing on his journey. It was an honor to read this, and I recommend it to all of you. Please let me know, let the Book Interrupted group know, what did you think of this book if you've read it? It's changed me, it's moved me in the most incredible way.
I really enjoyed this book. I read it very quickly. And as much as this book is about traumatic events and addiction and homelessness and how the system fails the most vulnerable in our society, this story is also about love. That's part of what I got from this book. The author writes about different people in his life, and you get the impression that these people, though they were going through challenges of their own, truly did love Jessie Thistle. And perhaps they weren't able to show that love in the way they wanted to. Take his dad, for example. His dad, I really got the impression that his dad did care for his sons, but he had his own problems, his own struggles with addiction. And because of that, he wasn't able to give them everything that they needed. You see this as well with the grandparents. And perhaps there's a little bit of intergenerational trauma throughout this book, which kind of stops the people from, showing their love in the way that we're used to seeing love portrayed in a story, kind of that Hollywood perfect expression of love. That's not what this is, but it's how they can love each other and also still be imperfect. Mr. Thistle's grandfather gave him tough love, and he said, if you ever do drugs, you're out. And he was trying to do the best that he could because that's how he was taught to love. So I kind of got the impression that some of the stories, the way that they were told, that the author is trying to show people that he heard them and he knew that they cared for him, even if he couldn't act any differently at the time because of his own struggles, particularly with addiction. And it's just nice that in the end, he got the love, the healthy love that helped pull him out. And it wasn't just one person that helped him survive, it was many people looking out for him in their own way, in the limited way that maybe they could. Because let's face it, if any one of us were experiencing the same things, I mean, it'd be hard to go back and keep giving to somebody who just wouldn't help themselves. And it is hard to help somebody because you can't really help somebody who doesn't want to be helped. And that's part of what this story is about, is him going through all this painful life until he got to the point where he really, really wanted out, and he was able to help himself and pull himself out. Do I recommend the book? I highly recommend the book. It is a very quick read because it's really hard to put down. The storytelling is fantastic. I think it really helps the reader connect with people who have challenges in their life like addiction beyond just their addictions, and see that there's humanity in there and they're real people and they deserve to be taken care of. One more thing. My suspicions about this book being about love were confirmed somewhat when the author was talking to a prisoner. And I want to read from the book right now because I think it sums up this thought better than I could. This is what the prisoner says to him. All us criminals start out as normal people, just like anyone else. But then things happen in life that tear us apart and make us into something capable of hurting other people. That's all any of the darkness really is. Just love gone bad. We're just broken-hearted people, hurt by life. I think that quote kind of sums up this book. It's about heartbreak, and it's about love, and it's about making it to the other side, and I guess mending that broken heart. So, do I recommend this book? I highly recommend it. Be warned, it will make you cry, but it'll also let you glimpse at the humanity of a fantastic storyteller and give you a little bit of insight into what some people go through who have a lot of trauma and challenges in their life.
Hi, this is my book report. What I have to report is, yet again, I didn't finish. So, book aside. Side note, I'm starting to become acutely aware of how slow a reader I am. I think almost all of these book cycles are 6 weeks, and I can't do it. I consistently get to maybe half at best. And two things. One, I think I'm too tired because I read a page and I'm out. Second thing is, when I do have my crap together enough to read a lot, I feel like I'm rereading a lot, and it's just making me have these memories of reading comprehension from childhood, reading disabilities. And I was like, I thought I kind of outgrew it. But if you don't have anything to compare yourself to, I think I read at a 3rd grade level. No, I think you think you're on par. What happens when you get to the end of high school? I don't remember when the reading testing ends. I don't know. I'm certainly slow. And it's starting to piss me off how slow I am. So I need to put in more effort. I need to stop watching TV, which is just probably a good life choice. Imagine what I would get done. I mean, it's the cornerstone of my marriage, but I would get a lot done. Anyways, to the book. It's just a beautiful piece of everything. I love it. I'm vowing to continue reading it, just like I vowed to continue reading Sapiens. So now I've got I'll have these 2 books on go and start the other one. And let's face it, I'm lying about something. I'm definitely lying about something, because there's no way I can read 3 books at a time when I can hardly read 1. I love it though. I have no complaints. I love the book. I love the story. I'm up to page 130, The Strongest Brother. So he's not even an adult yet. And I think it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better, but it is so beautiful. I love the occasional photo that they put in here of the family. It's just so. Oh. I also love how short the chapters are. I don't know. I love that. Those little technical things. Feels like a short storybook. Feels like a. Who was I talking? Maybe I was talking to Care about it. Little short stories to make up a book, but all on the same trajectory. It's just a beautiful book. He's such a talented author. I said in a previous personal journal, I think this is my favorite book just because it's like just a narrative story and it feels so personal and so beautiful. And I have nothing bad to say about it. I have no negative feedback. It's heartbreaking. It's heart-wrenching. It really makes me think about how are they vetting foster parents? What kind? It seems like a lot of downstream band-aids for. Oh, sorry. There's a crazy red squirrel outside. Those red squirrels are wild, and I know he's eating my beans. He got them. I should be up there scaring him. Okay. I know that it's so. I don't know anything about the foster care system. I don't know anything about child welfare and protective services. It just seems like, oh, like, oh, what a mess. Some people don't get a chance at all. Just don't get a chance at all at a good start. So I can't wait to find out how he, you know, gets real low, gets hopefully real high, and gets back to the right side and writing a novel. And yeah, just good for him for sharing. I love it. That's all I guess I have to say. Sorry about all the ums and ahs. I'm mad at myself for again not finishing. Happy at Jesse for writing this book. Ta-da! Bye-bye.
Hey, so I was just listening to a interview with country singer George Canyon. Let me just double check that I got that right. Yes, who was defending Jesse Thistle for the Canada Reads. And in the interview, actually, Jesse Thistle was talking about the style of his book, which I thought was really interesting. He was actually approached by Simon & Schuster, the publisher, to write the book after they read about his story in the Toronto Star and his rise to academia. And so a lot of the stories that Jesse Thistle wrote were actually him doing his 12-step AA program. So that's why they're kind of little snippets. The quote I wrote here is, "The book was like recovery, and those little fragments that the book's written in appear that way because that's how I wrote my 4th step, which is my moral inventory." And then he was saying that resentment was locking him into his addiction, and so he needed to understand his past. I thought that was really interesting to know as a context. I really love this book. I can't say enough about it. I think everybody should read it. It really gives you an opportunity to understand what it's like for someone who is homeless and who goes through addiction. And, you know, it makes you look at people who are on the streets and think they're real people. And that's important, that we should all be thinking that. So I would highly recommend this book. And that's about it. So thanks for listening in, and we'll see you on the next book cycle.
I love the book. I devoured it. I finished it so quickly I couldn't put it down. His storytelling is amazing. It helped that it was a happy ending, but I think what surprised me is that you keep on waiting for the happy ending. You think the happy ending would be maybe half the book, or a large portion of the book would be like, and here's the happy ending. But it isn't. It kind of just ends at the happy ending. He doesn't go on about it, which just plays into how all his other stories go, like we discussed in other group sessions about how it doesn't sound like he's not being the victim. You know, he's just kind of telling you the story from his perspective, and it's very non-judgmental, like he's just explaining it. And his storytelling is just incredible, and it does keep you going because it's almost like you're waiting for when is the happily ever after, and eventually it does come. which is amazing. Like, he's just an amazing person. I'm so glad he found his wife, and that she encouraged him to, do his dreams after he had a happily ever after, just getting sober. But she helped him, like, push him into actually living, his full potential. Reminded him what his dreams were. I also liked, like, I keep on going back. There's in the end of the book, there was a letter that his dad wrote him from prison in 1981, and his grandparents didn't give it to him. And I know I shouldn't, because he doesn't, but I go back and forth, like, I wonder how that might have changed maybe his life. But I guess he doesn't really need his life to change, because it just turned out so well, and he wouldn't have gotten to where he was, I suppose, maybe without the stories that created the person he is. Anyway, I love the book. I'm definitely going to read this book again. I've already actually started listening to the audiobook again. Like, I read the actual book, but I downloaded the audiobook to listen as well. Yes, wonderful book. I recommend it to everyone. I think everybody should read it. It's definitely my favorite book this season. Excellent book. Must read.
All right, this is my final book report for From the Ashes by Jessie Thistle. Would I recommend this book? 1,000 times yes. The reason why is because the telling of this story with the level of vulnerability, openness, and honesty that Jessie Thistle has exhibited is an example of a true exercise, or an exercise in truly loving yourself. When you can present all of you, like if you can present your truth, people's truths are not always pretty. People's truths are not always perfect. They're never perfect, in fact. People's truths have light and dark. People's truths have ugly and pretty. People's histories have mistakes, regrets, behaviors that they're not proud of, as well as accomplishments, successes, pain that they weren't responsible for. Humankind has so many facets and experiences that it's not binary, right? It's not either this or that. It's all of it. We tend to present our best selves. We tend to show what we think will be accepted, and we tend to hide what we think may cause us to look bad or be received poorly. If you really love yourself, then you can talk about those things which you would most likely be ashamed of or afraid to share for fear of judgment. And so that's why I really love this book. That's why I certainly recommend it, because Jessie Thistle in this book really tells the story of how he didn't love himself. He didn't even know himself. And he kind of stumbled into his own identity over those years. The act of telling that story, like on this large scale publicly, is like the ultimate act of self-acceptance and love. And I just love it. Because if you don't like embrace yourself in the way that he must have had to write this and share it, then you don't really love yourself. You know what I mean? Like, how can you expect anyone else to accept those things that you don't even forgive yourself for, or are unwilling to share as pieces of you because they happen to be a little bit less savory or whatever. Anyway, From the Ashes by Jessie Thistle. Highly recommend. Yes, read it. It is just a great book. That's the end of my book report for this book.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Book Interrupted. If you'd like to see the video highlights from this episode, please go to our YouTube channel. Be sure to subscribe, and you'll be notified when there's new content. Want to be part of the conversation? Have your voice heard on our fan episode next week. Or recommend a book and you could be joining us for a 6-week book cycle. Find out more by going to www.bookinterrupted.com/fans.
Hi, this is Leah of Book Interrupted. So, the Book Interrupted team is looking for self-published authors. We'd like to expose your book to more readers and listeners. Also, we'd like sponsorship. So, you scratch our backs, we'll scratch yours. Please go to www.bookinterrupted.com/sponsorship. Thanks.
Book interrupted.
Never forget, every child matters.